Hi, this is Guillaume from ViewComfy, and today I'm going to show you how to use the ViewComfy util notepack inside ComfyUI to create complex behavior in your apps. So, the two types of behavior I'll show you how to create today are workflow routing. So, for example, here I've got a workflow which can run with upscaler or without upscaler, and I have this other behavior here, which this other workflow which has a conditional image. If I click generate now, then the text to image version of this workflow will run, and if I put an image here, automatically the image to image version of this workflow will run. So the first thing you need is to install this node pack inside ComfyUI. It's available via the manager. This node pack has 6 different nodes here that are meant to allow you to create more complex behavior in your app. So compare and conditional select together, they can create those if-else behaviors. Show anything is just a good debugging tool. This I'm sure you've seen this node before. Load image, so this allows you to create those optional image. And anything inverse switch, this is for workflow routing. And finally, there's a show error message, which basically allows you to create custom error message that will pop up in the apps if the user does something that is unwanted. So if I go in ComfyUI here, the first thing I'll do is create this workflow routing behavior where you can have the upscaler or no upscaler optionally. I'll show you how to do that. So the first thing to do will be to double this workflow, because basically you'll be running a slightly different version of the workflow depending on whether you choose to run the upscaler or not to run it. So this is the part that will be doubled. Then I need to add an upscaler here. Right, so I'm just using the kind of really basic upscaler for this example, but obviously you can have a more complex one or any other behavior. So you could have one type of control net on this bottom part of the workflow and a more complex one at the top. Now what we want to do is just create a switch so that depending on what the user selects, so if I just go back to the app here, so depending on which of those two parameters the user selects, the top part of the workflow will run or the bottom part. And then we want to keep this part common to both workflows. So the way we do this is that we put if you search for ViewComfy after installing the node pack, you see all the nodes here. We want to use the anything inverse switch. And here I'm just going to connect it to model. It can take any type of input, so it doesn't have to be a model. It could be a string or anything else. And I'm just going to connect it here. And let me just connect that and I explain how everything works. So what will happen now if I click generate is that those 3 nodes will run. And then the way this node works is that it's going to stop the part of the workflow which is not being selected from running at all. So here the index is 0, so it's going to send the model to this output 0. So this part of the workflow will run, and this part of the workflow will not run at all. So this is useful because, well, it's going to save you some time. So here, if you've got an upscaler and you don't want, the user doesn't want to use it, obviously it's going to save them a lot of time if they don't run that part of the workflow. So let me show you how it works. So now the index is 0. I'll just zoom out a bit. Perfect. So you see the top part of the workflow ran and the bottom part did not. Now if I change this index to 1, let's see what happens. And there you go. So you can see that now the bottom part of the workflow ran. So this is what we want to implement in the app. So then to create the app using this, I'm not going to go through the process in detail here because I've been through it many times in other videos. I'll link one of them in the description. But you just export the workflow API. And then if you go to the ViewComfy app editor, the key thing you need to do is that if you look for the switch, so that's going to be the node called anything invert switch here. You need to, if you want to create the same kind of drop down behavior I have in my app, you can go to select here. So this is so remember 0 is without the upscaler, and 1 would be with upscaler. Right, so once you've done that, you save the change. Now you've got your drop down. Obviously, just delete all the parameters you don't want to keep, and then you will have an app that allows the user to route the workflow. Right, so now if you want to take this one step further and create this behavior where a different part of the workflow runs depending on the input. So for example, whether the conditional image workflow, so this would be something like that. If I have an image, run the image to image workflow. If I don't, run the text to image. So if I go back here, the first thing you'll need to do in this case is you need to use the ViewComfy version of the load image node. This is because this version of the node does not return an error if it's empty, while the ComfyUI version does. Then I'm just gonna set this up quickly because I'm sure you know how to do this already. Right. So now if I click run, I'll just show you what happens. So the index is 1. So this is the part of the workflow that will run. And there's no image here. Okay, so now you see you got this error from the VAE encode, which is non-type object not subscribable. So this happens because when there is no image, this node sends a none, and the VAE encode does not know what to do with that value. But the way to solve this problem is that you need to stop this node from running if there are no image, or like if you don't want to run that part of the workflow. So to do that, you just need to put it after a switch. So I'll put a second switch here for the VAE connected to the two parts of the workflow. So now if the switch is 0, this won't run. And then I just want to make sure that both those nodes have the same value. So I'll just add int node and make sure it's fixed, because otherwise it's gonna change value every time. So now you can control the value from just one node. So now if I click run, okay, good. So this will run and the bottom bit should not return any errors. Okay, perfect. So this is what we wanted. So now you still need a switch to control the workflow. So we just need to create that if else behavior so that when there's no image, the top part of the workflow runs automatically. So the way you're going to do this is that you need to use those other nodes from the node pack, so the compare, and you're also going to need the conditional select. So the conditional select is what's going to send the value to the switch, and then we're going to need a second one like this. So value A is going to be 0 and value B is going to be 1. If the condition is true, value A is going to be sent to those nodes and the top part of the workflow will run. And if the condition is false, well, value 1 will be sent and the bottom part will run. So now we just need to create the condition based on whether there's an image. So I will connect this image here. So by default, A and B here are none. And remember that when there's no image, this node sends a none. So if there's no image, A will be none. B is none by default. So if this is the case, A and B are true. And so this node will return the value true. And and then 0 will be sent to the switch. So let's see what happens now. I don't have any image. Great, so you can see the top part of the workflow run now. So if I add an image here, like this button, so this is a text to image workflow, so I'll just reduce the denoise so that you can still see the image a bit, and click run. Cool, so that works. So this is how you can create those if-else behavior that will reroute your workflow based on a condition automatically. And then the last quick thing I want to show you how to do is to create those custom error message. So this will be the last node in the node pack. And I'll save you a bit of time and just load the workflow I already created. Right, so what do we have here? So let me go through all the steps one by one. So we've got this get image size. So this is getting the image size of the input image. And then it's going to compare it twice, one for the width, one for the height, with a value that I've set. So in this case it's 200. It's really small, but I just want to make sure the error shows up. And then there's another compare node, which is A or B. So if either A or B is true, then show the error message. So let's run this and see what happens. So my image is 640 by 640, so the error should come up. So there you go, image is too big. So this is what we wanted. So I hope you find this tutorial helpful. I went through all the nodes in the ViewComfy util node pack. If there's any other nodes you think would be a good addition to help you create more complex behavior in your apps, please let us know. Thank you.